Sleepyheads. Long time no post. But I'm back with another ASMR Storytime Chronicles. By the title, you know that this episode I'm going to be talking about that time I flipped a rental car on the expressway in St. Louis. Okay, and I'm going to start by sharing. I can't remember if I've shared this before. I think in my last video I shared that I was living in Missouri. Yeah, I did. That I was living in Missouri. So I live in Baltimore now with my husband. And so my parents and my brother and one of my brothers and one of my sisters live in Missouri. And so my husband's family, his immediate family, live here in Baltimore, all of them. So for the holidays, since I can't remember what we were doing before we were married, but before we were married, when we became serious, we began to split holidays. And so, for Thanksgiving, we would do Thanksgiving here in Baltimore. And for Christmas, we would go hang out with my parents. Now, sometimes that meant that we would be traveling here, there, and everywhere with my parents, meeting them up somewhere. We have family all over the United States. So sometimes that would mean we would drive to Louisiana because we have a lot of family in Louisiana. Sometimes that would mean that we would go to Kansas because we have family in Kansas. Here lately we've been traveling here, there, and everywhere. And we this Christmas we were actually in Toronto, but I'll save that story for another day. But so yeah, usually we travel to see my parents for Christmas. And this particular Christmas we were driving. Typically we drive. Now I know what you're thinking. Baltimore and Missouri, so Maryland and Missouri are not close to each other. So I live in Baltimore, and I'm from, well, at least where my parents live, and I spent the majority of my life. So that's a small town outside of Kansas City. And so from Baltimore to that town in just outside of Kansas City, it's about 1,100 miles. So that equates to about a 17-hour drive. And when hubby and I were a little bit younger, we would do that drive no problem. These days, we tend to fly. And actually, we're gonna go in July. We're gonna go hang out for a family reunion on my parents' side of the family. But yeah. So, but I digress. I'm all over the place. But anyway, so it's a 17-hour drive, and let me just say this: it is very scenic and beautiful. Now, the way we tend to go is we drive through from Baltimore. We drive all the way through Western Maryland, which, if you're not from Maryland and you pull it up on a map, you don't think that Maryland is a tiny state as states go in the United States. It's a tiny state. The only smaller state in the Union is Delaware, I think. Oh no, or is it? It's a toss-up between not Vermont, but Connecticut. Connecticut might be the smallest state in the Union. But no, Vermont, no. I don't remember anyway. But is Connecticut small? Yeah, Connecticut might be the smallest. I can't call it. But anyway, so yeah, it takes about 3.5 hours just to get out of Maryland from Baltimore, because it just takes that long to get out of the state. And so you have an opportunity to go when there's a name for that feeling, and I tend to get that when I look at the ocean, but I also get that same feeling, like, not when I'm on the beach, that doesn't count, but when, like, I'm on, like, a boat or something like that. It's scary, and it can be overwhelming, so I have to calm myself, but I get that same feeling when I'm looking at the arch because it's so tall. I don't get the same feeling with buildings. I get it with, like, objects like the arch. I don't think when I saw the Statue of Liberty, I don't think I got that feeling. But yeah, it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming. But it's also beautiful, and I don't know how I survived going up in the elevator. Excuse me, of the arch, but I did. Anyway, so yeah, and ironically, so it takes from Baltimore to West Virginia, it's 3 hours. Like, if you're going out of the state of Maryland, if you're driving the length through all of the counties, so like if you're passing out through, I think Allegheny is the last county that you pass through before you get to West Virginia. And anyway, so like it's from Baltimore to through the state line at Allegheny County, or is it Washington County? I think it's Allegheny. Anyway, the last county before you leave this the border of Maryland and you go into West Virginia proper, it's 3 hours, right? And so we're meandering, driving. And by the time we get to, it's so wild because by the time we get to St. Louis to my parents' house, it's 3 hours. And it is the longest 3 hours ever, as you can imagine, because we're on the tail end of a 17-hour drive. Now, mind you, it never takes us 17 hours because we get where we're going, if you understand what I mean. Anyway, so our routine is when you are doing road trips, and this is just a little tip for folks who want to start doing road trips and things like that, that you should always be driving up and driving when it feels natural for you to be up and driving, right? Within reason. So for instance, for us, we would always drive straight through. That's how we do when because it's from Baltimore to Missouri, to where my parents live in Missouri. It's halfway across the country. Missouri is the Midwest. Baltimore, Maryland is on the East Coast. We're on the coast. So we get up and we leave probably by 4. No later than 4 in the morning. So that 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then drive, and by the time we get to my parents' house, it's like 7:30, something like that. That includes fuel stops, and we always time our fuel stops with restroom breaks unless we just can't help it and we have to stop more sooner than that. But we always time. We are efficient with our fuel ups, and we're also getting cardio in when we're fueling up and things like that. Which probably is not the most healthy thing to do, but it's efficient. And so anyway, so we always leave like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. We always get to my parents' house by like 7:30. 7:30 at night. And so and the reason why we do that is because you still have enough time to wind down from the road, because you're kind of amped up and wound up trying to make sure you don't miss your exits, or make sure that you're paying attention to the road and all of that. So like you're wound up, so you need a second to wind down. And so if you ever have to do a long country trip, it's always best to, again, as I say, like, no, you're not normally active and aware at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, but it's not far off from when most people get up. Most people probably get up around 6:30, 7 o'clock to be at work or to be up at school for whatever reason. To be at school like that by the 8:15 bell. I'm talking about the United States now. I don't know what it is out in other countries, but you got to be at work at 9. Most people start work at 9 o'clock, so 6:30, 7 o'clock is when you're getting up and you're getting ready, and then you've got your commute. Average commute, I think, depending on where you are, is like 45 minutes. So 6:30, 7 o'clock is totally fine for you. find enough time for you to get up and commute so you can be at your desk at 9 o'clock in the morning. So the theory is you get up not much earlier than you would normally get up. You will be able to then go to bed. Your sleep schedule won't be too impacted. Like, yes, you will, you and your partner, or whoever we call them road dogs. Your road dog is, you guys are taking turns driving, and which also probably means that somebody's taking a nap, while you're doing that, and that's totally fine. But anyway, I just wanted to share that little tip that, just make sure that if you're doing any like cross-country driving, or if half across the country driving, that, just make sure you're driving, you're timing your trip, your departure, and your arrival time around when it feels not too far off from when you would normally be waking up, and when you would normally be going to sleep, winding down for a bit. Anyway, I digress. So, the story that I'm going to tell you happened one Christmas. It must have been 2013. Maybe it was 2013. And the only reason why I think it was 2013 is because I remember 2020 was such a big deal. No, it wasn't 2013, it was 2014. Hubby and I were married. No. Hubby and I were married in 2013, so it happened in 2014. It happened in 2014, 2015, something. No, it was 2014. It was 2014. Because I remember the only reason why I'm keeping this thing straight is because I remember 2012 was supposed to be when the world ended, and I remember that movie 2012 came out, and it was, capitalizing on that. Remember that everybody thought that based on the Maya calendar, because the Maya calendar ended in 2012, according to them, according to some people who were saying that the world was going to end, they said, in 2012, they said, I keep yawning, I'm putting my own self to sleep, but, they were saying that the world was going to end in 2012, and I just remember my mama thinking, well, if the world does end, like, I hope, I want to see my baby happy. Talk about me. 2012, I was proposed to. My hubby proposed to me. Christmas 2012, we were married. August of 2013. And yeah, we've just been happy ever since. But it's not without its ups and downs. But we've been happy ever since. But I digress. I'm doing ASMR, so hopefully you're comfortable, relaxing, or maybe you're asleep at this time. I really don't know. Anyway, but let me get to it. So, it wasn't 2012. I was proposed to 2013. We got married 2014. So it was our second year of marriage. And I can remember this was right before, this was right before my parents decided that we were rarely going to spend Christmas home again, at their home, that we were going to always be traveling, doing something fun and different for Christmas. So this particular Christmas, it was not unlike anything else. What hubby and I would do is, instead of putting miles on our car, we would put miles on, we would get a rental car, like a cheapy rental car, and just drive that thing. It was just cheaper for the most part, and it was less wear and tear on our vehicles. At the time, I drove a Nissan Altima. It was like a pewter colored Nissan Altima. said, just, road trips are fun, but after a while, the road takes a toll out of you. It takes a toll out of you. Especially a 17-hour drive. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole day gone. That's 2 days gone completely. A day going down and a day coming back. And so anyway, we would always rent a car. And so at this particular time, what type of car was it? I think it was a Chevy Volt. I think it was something like a Volt. It was a hatchback. No, it wasn't a Volt. It was a hatchback. It was not an electric car, or even partial electric car. It was like a fuel efficient hatchback. And my husband is tall, so he had to scoot the seat all the way back just to get some leg room. And even then, it was not the most comfortable thing in the world. But again, it was fuel efficient, so we did what we had to do. So anyway, so the drive down is fine. Again, it's December in Missouri is not terrible. It's cold. Maybe sometimes there is snow on the ground. As I shared the last episode, it's like the January, February one. It's really February and March that's snowy and cold in Missouri. But December is kind of okay. So anyway, we were driving down, and I don't believe there was too much snow on the ground. But the drive down was super fine. We enjoyed Christmas, hung out, did our thing. Oh, well, let me back up, because I have to tell you a story that's relevant to this whole conversation. So, what I started to say was we waited late, like toward the last second, to rent a car, and we ended up going to, like, all of the name brand rental places. They didn't have an economy car, or it was just something, it was way too expensive. It was just, there was a reason, for whatever reason, we just did not use any of the big ones. And I'm thinking, Enterprise, what's the gold people, Hertz, Alamo, is Alamo big? Anyway, the big ones, think of the big ones. We tried to use them, but it just never worked out, so we ended up going to this company that, I'm not trying to slander them, I'm just sharing our experience. So this company called, oh no, I don't even want to say it. It's a company who has the initial NC on it. I think I've already said too much, but you can probably guess what we're talking about. But anyway, so we went there, and we were able to rent a car. And so we got the car that we wanted, and at the price range that we wanted. And so we drove it all the way down. We got, all the insurance and all of that stuff. The only thing was, this particular car place where we rented the car from only had dealerships, to our knowledge, on the East Coast. Not in Missouri. So we would literally, if something should happen, we would literally have to, you'd have to figure it out. And that's important later, so put a pin in that. But anyway, so the journey down was totally fine. Christmas itself was an enjoyable experience, like it always was. Christmas at home was an enjoyable experience. We got to see family members we hadn't seen in a while, or at least family members I hadn't seen in a while. No, both of us hadn't seen in a while on my side of the family. And enjoyed time with my parents. But we had to go back, so I think it was 2-3 days after Christmas. It was a Sunday. I remember it being a Sunday. And Christmas that year was on like a Friday or something like that, so we left Sunday. Like 3:30, 4 o'clock. I remember us leaving a little bit later than we wanted to, from Missouri. And just as like a little thought, so you gain an hour, we gain an hour when we're coming from Baltimore to the Kansas City area, but we lose an hour when we're leaving the Kansas City area and coming back to Baltimore, because they're in different time zones, right? Missouri is in Central Time. It's an hour behind to St. Louis. It's about 3 hours. And so we're driving. I've got all my energy. Well, we're in the St. Louis area, and unfortunately we get into St. Louis and we hit rush hour traffic. It's just how it shook out that it was rush hour. Actually, no, it wasn't a Sunday, it was a Monday. It was a Monday because we hit commuter rush hour traffic on accident. But my husband had to be at his job, seated at his job at 6:30 in the morning on Tuesday. So anyway, by the time we got to St. Louis, we were hitting rush hour traffic and we were in the thick of it. And I'm moving and shaking, and I'm really trying to be aggressive. I'm really trying to, get where we're going because we're already behind on time. And we just didn't time this thing right. So I'm trying to get where I'm going. And we get to the east side of St. Louis, and I'm sticking and moving. Traffic is moving. We're going one way, and the rest of traffic is obviously going to work downtown or going to work in other places. And so I'm dipping and bobbing outside of traffic again, trying to just get out of rush hour traffic for St. Louis. And I admit this here, I admit it now, I'm being very aggressive, just, getting in the fast lane, trying to get in front of cars so that we can just get out of there. And this particular time I made this maneuver. I get in the fast lane, and I'm about to pop in front of these other cars. But I'm running out of room because ahead of me, maybe a mile ahead of me, is just less than a mile ahead of me is an emergency vehicle that stopped. It's like a road vehicle that stopped. That's telling everybody to get out of the fast lane, go to another lane because they're doing something. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm bad about mine. I'm gonna do this thing. And so I'm moving over, I'm gunning it because I'm trying to hurry up and get over before I have to slam on my freaking brakes and stop. It was dangerous. I'm being 100% honest. It was dangerous. And so I'm almost playing chicken with this vehicle, and my husband at this point is woken up. And you know how rush hour traffic goes. Some people can be aggressive, and I was being aggressive right back with them. I will tell you now that I have changed. I don't know because of what I'm about to tell you or what, but I have changed my driving habits completely. But in this moment, I was being extremely aggressive, and I was just trying to get over. And again, I told you I'm about to barrel into this road vehicle if I don't hurry up and get over, because they are literally in the fast lane. Now, mind you, they have the big old sign that's telling you to move over because I'm here. Anyway, so at the last minute, I would say I'm about 2 car lengths before I absolutely need to slam on my daggone brakes, or I'm gonna hit this service vehicle. I get over, and apparently that was the absolute wrong time to get over, because when I get over, I don't see in my blind spot that there is a truck that's directly in my path where I'm trying to get over. And remember, when I'm saying a truck, I'm saying like a pickup truck. And remember, I'm wearing a hatchback. And so it's at this point that I'm still trying to go back through the driving records to understand what exactly happened. But somehow or another, the middle of the car that we're driving, hits the front driver's side of the truck, and the rate at which we were going, plus me, getting over. And when I'm saying getting over, I'm in the left lane, so I'm in the far left lane, which is the fast lane. I'm trying to get into the lane right next to the fast lane, which is just the driving lane. And the truck is right there that I do not see because they're in my blind spot. And so, the middle of our car hits the driver's side front of his truck, and I guess at such speed that we flip. Literally, the hatchback flips, and upside down. Like the car stays upside down as it's flipped. And I immediately crawl out and get on the left side of the car, and the left side of the road. My husband crawls out and gets on the right side. And I'm dazed, and somehow or another, somebody in some off-duty emergency vehicle, some off-duty like paramedic or whatever, runs to me, and my adrenaline is pumping. I don't feel anything. Like, I feel fine, but my adrenaline is pumping because we would just flip the car. I'm pulling out. I'm asking my husband if he's okay. I'm crying because he's fine, but I put him at risk. And so anyway, it was wild. I can't tell you what the scene looked like. I just remember that there was, so our car was on one side, the truck was on another side, I was on the same side as the truck. There was still a lane where cars could get through, and I just remember that someone took a picture of me sitting on the side of the road as they were driving, and took a picture of the accident while they were driving. It was so crass, it was so stupid, but that's what people do. And so anyway, so the paramedics pulled me, got me from the left side of the highway and pulled me over to the shoulder that had more room. And, exchanging information, sharing license, sharing all of this stuff, the important stuff. They tried to get me to go into the ambulance. I did not want to go because I wasn't feeling bad. And the off-duty paramedic was like, well, you don't feel bad now, but you're gonna feel bad later. You're gonna feel bad, honey. So just think about that. But again, I told you we were already running late, and now we're in an accident, and we're running even more late. I'm trying to get us home because my husband has to go to work early in the morning the next day. So anyway, we wrap it up with the police, and they take us to go get a rental. And here's where it gets complicated because the car that we got the original car from, remember I told you they did not have locations outside of the East Coast, and here we are still in Missouri. We're in St. Louis. So we spent, all told, between the accident, we had to get another car rental place, or find another car rental place. Thank God, after going back and forth and being ferried here, there, and everywhere, we finally were able to go to Hertz. And they did have a car for us, and we were able to drive back. We were able to drive back home and do what we need, get home. But we had blown essentially like 8 hours going back and forth between the accident. Not 8 hours, it was more like 6. Going back and forth between the accident, trying to make sure that, now was it 6 or was it like 5? It was more like 5. I'm embellishing. It was like more like 5 hours. But, trying to clean up what just happened, because I cannot tell you why we went here, there, and everywhere, but we ended up going here, there, and everywhere. And yeah, so long story short, we ended up finally getting in the car and being able to go home. And the sucky thing was my husband was sleepy. He still needed to get some sleep. And so I had to continue driving. And I will just pause and say this. I was so scared and guilty because I was being aggressive on the road. And that's why I got into that accident, because I was being too aggressive and I wasn't properly paying attention. Every car has a blind spot. And I knew where this car's blind spot was, the original car that we were driving. I just didn't. I was just being I thought I was just overly confident. And so now here we are in another rental vehicle, and I'm scared now. And so I'm doing the speed limit. I'm not taking chances, and we're just not getting home in the time that we need to get home. And my husband, I'm sure he was going through some stuff too. And, but he was trying to get catnaps here and there because, again, he really needed to go to sleep. I could take off. He sure if you ever get into an accident that you go to the hospital. Don't be hard-headed. Don't assume because you don't feel anything now that you'll never feel anything. Because about 2.5 hours after we finally got our rental car, we're on the road, and we were at this point in Illinois, about to hit Indiana or Kentucky. I started to become in pain. Like, apparently in the accident, my hand slammed against like the window, like the driver's side window or something, some hard object, because my wrist hurt so badly. Also, apparently in the accident, my ankle got sprained somehow, and so my ankle began to throb, and it was my driving ankle began to throb, and so I was in so much pain driving. And my husband, he had a knot on his arm from, I guess, him slamming, or like his shoulder, like the top of his shoulder, from slamming into something. And so, like, he was in pain, and neither one of our weird selves decided that it was a good idea to go to the hospital again. Go to the hospital and make sure that you're good. And so here we are, limping back to Baltimore in a new bright shiny car, but like scared. I'm scared. The husband is just like trying to keep it together because he's got to be at work in a couple of hours. So we finally make it home. Here's the deal: we lost so much time that we didn't actually get back to Baltimore until like 5 in the morning, and my husband had to be at work at 6:30. So ask me how much sleep he got. Not a lot. And of course I did call out the next day. But the moral of the story is a couple things. Number one, don't be too aggressive on the road. Fly when you can drive. But if you do want to drive, please don't be too aggressive and don't be overly cocky. If you do get into an accident, 2, please go to the hospital. 3, just make sure that you get a rental car. If you're going to drive a rental car, make sure you get a rental car with like the major providers, because you don't have to go on a wild goose chase to find providers in and around, like wherever you get stuck. Go with the big guys, because like I said, we went with I mean, in hindsight, we probably should have sprung for the extra money. It would have taken less. It would have caused us less heartache in the long run. But how were we supposed to know that we get into a car accident? But anyway, yeah, there's so many morals. But don't be overly aggressive on the road. If you do get into an accident, make sure you do go to the hospital, and make sure you are renting from. If you do have to rent a car, if you're going to drive and you're going to rent, you do have to rent a car. Make sure you're going with the big guys, because you don't want to have to run around trying to find another one. You know what I mean? And again, I cannot tell you why we had such a problem finding a rental. Oh, you know what? Because all the places they were taking us to only allowed for local rentals. They wouldn't let us take the cars out of town. That's what it was. And I think the people that we were with, I cannot remember. I can't remember everything, but I just remember that we had to drive like here, there, and everywhere to get a place to get a rental car. And we looked up on what's the Hertz. We looked up on Hertz. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, but we ended up the knot on my husband's arm went down. My wrist went through some changes for a little while, for like maybe 6 months or so, but it finally got back. My ankle, I think the pain went away in my ankle in like a week or so. I was wrapping it and things like that, but yeah, I was still stupid not to go to the hospital, so I do not recommend it. But yeah, that was 2014, and ever since then, I will tell you this: I am an angel on the road. Well, not a complete angel, but I'm very careful on the road. And plus, hubby and I have insurance with with State Farm Insurance, we I think all insurances have this, but we have this little tracker in our car, which you earn money off of your payment if you drive well according to their standards. And I'm happy to say that my insurance, if I was just paying for myself, my insurance would be less than $100 because I'm driving so well. So I just need you to know that. Anyway, but you're probably asleep.